Comedian, grifter, grifter, comedian. Tell me which is which.
Oh,
Hi, everyone.
I can't personally, can I?
No, because you shouldn't be able to, right? It's like,
Mm-mm.
so Owen training himself by having tomatoes thrown at him to be a comedian was obviously running a fair, he's at the Renaissance fair grifting off of people's frustration with the insults that he's hurling at them, so they throw tomatoes at him. Jim Bob, obviously, I mean, in this one, it's interesting. Can anyone point me towards my opinion, which I found hilariously appropriate, right? Because Owen, as the guy has tomatoes thrown at him, is saying things that enrage people enough to get them to throw tomatoes. That's his whole point.
Yes.
And then Jim Bob, even in his own cartoon, there saying, what opinion should I have? The joke being, of course, everybody's trying to tell all of us what, like we were talking about with the advertisements and the propaganda and the health messaging and stuff. What should I believe? Discussion that has spiraled up in the UATV community and elsewhere over the last month or so has been in the I'm a comedian, he's a grifter. He's a grifter, I'm a comedian. And it's like this twinning of, I got this dragon image one that works with the poem, my dragon song poem that I co-wrote with Cheryl. But it's also like in Merlin's prophecies and Geoffrey Monmouth's completely not historical story about King Arthur. You get these like red, white, red, white, red, white twinning of intensities and energies, which is appropriate since the reception I went to tonight at the consulate was for whales. So we're thinking about dragons, right? But the kind of spiraling energies that come when you get two characters that are basically identical.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain went into like 4 different directions. I saw the yin and yang. I'm seeing a maypole dance.
Yes. Finally,
there's this really strange book I bought when I was younger. Some guy talking about some asteroid thing. Anyway, it was the origin of the letter 8, the figure 8, because apparently there was a star formation that was going in this weird kind of spin. There was this film, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was a Jet Li movie, like Kung Fu. And it was called The One. So it's about all these parallel universes. There's a million universes. And then it's the same character, but in all of these different parallel universes. One of them is a very dangerous criminal, figures out how to jump into the other universes and starts killing himself, because the more you kill, the more power you're getting, because all of your other multiverse versions are all dead. Anyway, there ends up being just 2 left. So that's what you've described. This impossible to tell the 2 of them apart, because of course they sound the same. One's good, one's evil. It's very difficult to tell which one is which.
Exactly. Matthias Dismet, he's been talking about the mass formation stuff and totalitarianism and things like that. And the thing that I could not get from his description of the mass formations is why, right? What is actually the mechanism for how the mass ends up believing these things? He talks generically about the way the gaslighting works and the triggers and things like that, and could say that back in those 2006 ads with the cake and the broccoli, or the hell and heaven vacation stuff, they're the seed of this. And I started seeing it with the history myth history, and then back in 2012 when I was finally reading about Obama, why he wasn't the person that I thought he was in 2008, and I'm starting to have to break out of whatever one version of the siding that it's like, you guys, you're not going to be able to take sides by the time we finish this episode. Obama was standing for everything good that Bush had not been, right? And then I started reading about Obama and some of the conservative literature, and I'm like, okay, no, he's not good. He's not the good guy. And there's Romney running against him, and I'm doing these blog posts talking about, your guy, our guy, your guy, and realizing that the same sort of now I would say the same sort of twinning kept happening, right? It's like
Coke versus Pepsi.
That you see, you look at Obama, and if you're on our side, you see him as the embodiment of all good things, and if you're on the other side, you see him as the griftery bad guy, and vice versa. I can't see, Obama and Romney look identical to me now, because eventually I started seeing that, more recently, okay, so we have Owen and Jim Bob twinning each other and spiraling up in this kind of dragon dance, right? But we've also been reminded, because of all the tapes that Tucker Carlson has started to talk about, of the twinning of what was going on January 6th. And this one, I put up, it's Nancy Pelosi and Jacob Chansley, Q shaman, Pelosi in one of her signature pantsuits with a very ritual decorative mask on, right? I'm still fascinated by this mask that she wore. It's so amazingly ornamented with embroidery and such. It's like this was not a medical mask, right? This was a ritual mask.
Theatrical.
It's very theatrical, very, very, and we know that they're wearing them theatrically, but this one actually worked. And Chansley is there with his face paint on. He's holding a flag and he's got his buffalo hat and he's got, I assume they're tattoos, whether they're painted on or I guess they're tattoos. They seem fairly stable. I was very taken by the words patriot traitor because they're like nearly anagrams. There's no P in traitor, but you can see the words themselves doing this twinning. And anybody looking at Pelosi, who was standing up for, the proper functioning of our government, recognition of the true elections, she's the patriot. And there's the Q shaman and his costume, ruffianness, barbarian at the gates, taking, well, we've seen him now on the videos walking calmly through and I did blog posts on this, how
the most relaxed barbarian in the history.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And the thing is, I did a long blog post on when he's in the chamber and he walks in and goes, "Hey," right? He's such a dude. And there's an officer following him and he prays and everything. So no, he's the patriot and she's the traitor, because those of us on, once the other side of the conversation say, no, there was definitely shenanigans around something. Right. She's participating in covering it up. Patriot, traitor, traitor, patriot. I did this blog post with this picture when I'd been listening to Owen talking about batteries. And so this one was called Battery Life, how the two poles, good, bad, positive, negative, are necessary to kind of drive the whole engine.
Like how to think about these kind of iconic twins, the twinning effect. You can't predict who is going to be who because they look so similar. They have to look similar in order to be twinning. You can't predict, and they do flip, so they don't necessarily stay the same.
Now we're getting to an accurate description of the phenomenon that when I was listening to Owen talk about the batteries, so then we put it in the McLuhan's media moment, and I'm like, okay, this is clearly electrical, right? It's a positive, and it's like it's driving it, positive and negative, just as the poles of the magnet or the battery or whatever. So not necessarily good and bad, but just the poles driving the dynamo. Until Girard, my thinking was that was what it was. It's a kind of energy spiral. So in fact, you need both of them. Find one, there's going to be the opposite somewhere, right? And then recognizing that obviously our elections run this way with the, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, parliamentary, they always end up in the parliamentary system, two sides, they drive each other. You're not going to have a one party. I mean, it's a uniparty, but it's a uniparty of this polarizing. So they look identical, but they're polarized.
It explains why the category left and right becomes meaningless, because they're interchangeable now. The old category labels are not applicable because they've started to merge to become so similar that it's very difficult to tell them apart one from the other. It becomes a question of indoctrination, like the Jim Bob cartoon, more than it does actual differences.
So that's what we've been thinking. Right, and they say it's like the Orwell, the Animal Farm, when the pigs become fat people. Say the capitalists and communists are actually the same. We're constantly having this feeling in the conspiracy theorist world. There's only one system, right? Why all of the people in Congress end up dressing identically? It's like they change the different ties if they're colored ties if they're men. By now, I can't tell the difference between MTG and AOC. They're obviously poles of the same battery, and AOC almost called out the requirement that there's an MTG. You need the two of them. One by itself won't run. Recognizing these as batteries, so that we go to now.
They're charged by the tension of contrast.
Right, but they're almost identical. George III in his coronation outfit and the Constitution. Conservative, liberal, liberal, conservative. Which one is which? I mean, in the American political scene, we've been having this, sort of like, there's no rhinos. They're all, Republican in name only. The conservatives, they don't even conserve what they think they can. Well, probably because they're another of the dyads. Is the monarch conservative of tradition, and the Constitution is liberal in its Enlightenment philosophy? Or is, in fact, the king liberal because he's actually the guarantor of liberty? And I mean, what's ironic is George III is just Enlightenment as the Constitution. And the Constitution is now the conservative, so that those of us on the right, you're going to see it doesn't work that way, think that what we want to do is conserve the institutions as they were originally described in the Constitution. But you might be better off with the liberalizing ability of the king, although George III, insofar as he's a mercantilist, free trade, Adam Smithian, whatever he was, right? It's another dyad.
Yeah, it's choose your version of Globo Homo.
In this one, yeah. Yeah, because George III is the British Empire, and the Constitution is now the American Empire. What I was also thinking when I put these together, I put some of these pairs I put together for my class, and then I relabeled them for us. This one I had just good, bad, bad, good. It's like the king's good, the Constitution's bad. No, the king's bad, the Constitution's good. But that the king as a human being in whom you can actually invest, authority and responsibility, is a stronger good than the document that you use. A document's just a piece of paper. It has no power whatsoever, except for the agreement that everyone has to abide by it. And this twinning of king and document is a feature of English history, right? That here's the king, and we're going to write a document about whatever it is to make it real. But it's only the human beings that can make the document real. So which one is the actual authority?
The problem of vivifying a covenant, isn't it? Yeah, well, we have this argument here because we're not republic, thankfully. I'm not a Republican. We have this strange relationship to our monarchy because it's sort of not our monarchy. So Australia is kind of a pseudo monarchy. So we have a problem with this twinning because we're not fully sovereign, not fully under the sovereign, which is the king. But the argument here is always around the word sovereignty. It's a very triggering word for Australia right now. Sovereignty, especially with the native question. Indigenous people weren't included on the Constitution that the British created, so they're arguing over sovereignty. So yeah, this is a good one. In terms of the Australian twinning, this would be the big one, sovereign, and it's very triggering for everybody here right now. There's a lot of unease around it.
So what we're trying to unpack is the twinning, and then Girard actually has an explanation for why this happens, this driving out of it. There's recognizing the twins, what are actually the pairs that are generating. There's energy, but it's also destruction potentially out of these pairs. I mean, so obviously the Constitution was after the United States kicked George out. The Patriot Trader. It's like there's potential for violence in all of these.
Castor and Pollux.
Oh,
but
yeah.
No,
good. But the actual twins, Castor and Pollux, right?
So Castor and Pollux, the constellations, but they're the twins. They're Gemini. Now let me see it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was Paul sailing under the sign of Castor and Pollux. Now there was a shipwreck. That's why when he said the potential for violence, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that happened to St. Paul. Luke writes, after 3 months, we sailed in an Alexandrian ship, as Egypt, whose figurehead was the twin brothers, which had wintered at the island.
Okay.
The twinning effect has been there since forever.
Cain and Abel. Anyway, carrying on. No, and so what Girard is going to say is you're going to start realizing how many stories have these twins. Some think they're actually simply twins, brothers, right? They can be female twins too. And I'm in the Scapegoat I'm reading, he's talking about the beheading of John the Baptist and how Herod and Herodias are twinned. And then Herodias and her daughter are twinned. That what Girard tried to figure out was like, okay, so why does this constant mirroring and intensity happen?
Esther and Vashti.